What if the organ taking the quietest damage from alcohol isn't the one you've been warned about your whole life? Most people think of the liver first, and that makes sense. But while attention stays there, another system works in silence. Your kidneys. They don't hurt. They don't complain. They don't ask for rest. They simply adapt until adaptation is no longer possible. Here's the unsettling truth. Alcohol doesn't damage your kidneys by poisoning them at first. It disconnects their control system. From the very first drink, the signals that tell your kidneys how much water to keep, how much salt to balance, and how much pressure to tolerate begin to fail quietly. You urinate more. You feel thirsty. You assume dehydration, but what's actually happening is far more subtle. Your kidneys are losing regulation, not just fluid. And because kidney tissue doesn't feel pain the way other organs do, this damage builds without warning. In this video, we're not here to shame drinking, and we're not promising transformation. We're explaining, step by step, what science shows happens inside your kidneys after 30 days without alcohol. Not the myths, not the motivation talk, just biology. If you value calm, evidence-based health explanations like this, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find real science without fear or hype. Now, let's look at what your kidneys are doing long before you ever feel a problem. Part 1. What alcohol really does to your kidneys. To understand what alcohol does to your kidneys, we need to clear up a dangerous misunderstanding first. Kidneys are not simple filters. They are regulators, engineers of balance, constantly adjusting water, salt, pressure, and chemistry inside your blood every single second. And they do this without noise. They don't burn. They don't ache. They don't warn you early, which is why damage here almost always feels invisible until it's advanced. The moment alcohol enters your bloodstream, the first thing it disrupts is not tissue. It disrupts communication. Alcohol suppresses a hormone called vasopressin, also known as antidiuretic hormone. Under normal conditions, vasopressin tells your kidneys one simple thing: hold on to water. The body needs balance. When alcohol blocks that signal, your kidneys don't know what the body actually needs anymore. So they default to release. Water is pushed into urine. Volume increases. Control disappears. You urinate more not because your body has extra fluid, but because regulation has been silenced. This happens quickly, even with moderate drinking, even before intoxication. Here's where most people misunderstand what they're feeling. The thirst that follows alcohol is not just dehydration, it's cellular confusion. Electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium begin drifting out of their precise biological alignment. Cells shrink slightly. Electrical stability weakens. Muscles fatigue. The heart works harder to maintain rhythm. This is why drinking water alone often doesn't fully resolve how bad you feel. The issue isn't volume, it's balance. And here's the most dangerous part. Your kidneys feel none of this directly. Deep kidney tissue has no pain receptors. The microscopic filters doing the hardest work cannot signal distress. So stress accumulates quietly. Filtration pressure increases. Delicate membranes stretch. Oxidative stress builds inside kidney cells, all while you still feel functional. This is how kidney damage advances, not with drama, but with silence. Over time, repeated drinking forces your kidneys into a survival pattern. They prioritize short-term stability over long-term preservation. Blood becomes more concentrated. Filtration becomes harsher. Protective antioxidant systems are slowly depleted. Not enough to cause collapse, just enough to cause wear. And wear is the most dangerous form of damage because it never announces itself. You may remember nights after drinking, when your lower back felt heavy or warm. That wasn't folklore, it was pressure. By the time discomfort reaches awareness, stress has already spilled beyond the filters into surrounding tissue. This is why kidney injury is so often discovered late. Not because people ignored symptoms, but because symptoms were never loud enough. And this brings us to an uncomfortable truth. Alcohol doesn't damage kidneys by being toxic in the way people imagine. It damages them by forcing them to work without guidance, by stripping away hormonal control and asking a precision system to operate blind. That's the first layer of harm. What happens next depends entirely on whether alcohol keeps returning or finally stops. In the next part, we'll look at what happens inside your kidneys during the first few days without alcohol, why many people feel worse instead of better, why swelling and fatigue appear, and why that discomfort is often misread as failure instead of the beginning of recalibration. Part 2. Why the first week without alcohol feels wrong. When you stop drinking, most people expect relief, better sleep, clearer thinking, more energy. Instead, the first days often feel heavier. Your face may look puffy. Your body feels bloated. Blood pressure fluctuates. Fatigue settles in without warning. And this is the moment many people panic. They assume their body is rejecting the change. That abstinence is stressing the system. That alcohol was somehow helping them cope. This interpretation is understandable, but it's wrong. What you're experiencing is not deterioration. It's reboot. For weeks, months, or years, alcohol suppressed your kidney's hormonal control systems. Vasopressin was muted. Aldosterone was distorted. Electrolytes were constantly lost through excessive urination. Your kidneys adapted by operating in emergency mode. Now, when alcohol disappears, those suppressed signals don't simply return to normal. They overshoot. Vasopressin surges back. Aldosterone rises. The kidneys suddenly begin retaining water and sodium again, not because something is wrong, but because the system is recalibrating after long-term interference. This rebound effect causes temporary fluid retention, mild swelling, heaviness, pressure changes. It feels uncomfortable, and because the change is sudden, the body hasn't yet learned how to fine-tune it. Electrolytes begin shifting as well. Magnesium, potassium, and sodium, which were previously wasted through alcohol-induced urination, start moving back into cells. This process is slow and uneven. Muscles may feel weak. The heart may feel jumpy. Fatigue can feel deep and unexplained. This is not withdrawal in the dramatic sense. It's electrical recalibration. Your cells are relearning how to hold charge, how to fire signals, how to maintain rhythm without chemical interference. Here's the paradox most people never hear. The discomfort you feel during the first alcohol-free week is often a sign that regulation is returning, not failing. Blood volume begins expanding again. True blood pressure levels emerge, levels that were previously masked by dehydration. This can feel alarming. You may think your blood pressure is getting worse. In reality, your kidneys are finally reporting honestly. Illusion is ending. Reality is reappearing. And reality, at first, is uncomfortable. This is why so many people relapse during the first 5 to 7 days. They mistake recalibration for rejection. They interpret repair turbulence as danger. But kidneys don't heal loudly. They heal quietly through small, controlled adjustments that temporarily disrupt how you feel. Each alcohol-free day reduces inflammatory signaling. Each day restores clearer hormonal communication between your brain, your blood vessels, and your kidneys. Nothing dramatic announces this progress, but it's happening. By the end of the first week, something subtle shifts. Swelling begins to ease. Urination normalizes. Energy steadies slightly. You don't feel amazing. You feel less chaotic. And that quiet reduction in chaos is the foundation for everything that follows. Because once the kidneys regain control over water and electrolytes, they can finally address their most dangerous enemy, pressure. In the next part, we'll look at what happens when blood pressure begins to fall, why this matters more than detox myths, and how kidneys move from survival into genuine recovery mode. Part 3. Blood pressure. The kidney's real enemy. When people think about kidney damage, they often imagine toxins, poison, alcohol, chemicals passing through the body. But the most destructive force your kidneys face is far less dramatic. Pressure, not emotional pressure. Physical pressure inside tiny blood vessels that were never designed to endure it continuously. Your kidneys filter blood through millions of microscopic units, called glomeruli. Each one is a delicate network of capillaries designed to clean blood gently, not forcefully. They depend on precise pressure control to function safely. Alcohol disrupts that control in a quiet but relentless way. Every time alcohol enters your system, it activates a hormonal pathway known as the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. This system exists for survival. It constricts blood vessels to preserve circulation during dehydration or blood loss. But alcohol triggers it artificially again and again. Blood vessels narrow. Filtration pressure rises. The kidneys are forced to filter under strain. At first, this looks like efficiency. Lab numbers may appear normal. Urine output continues. You feel fine. But this is borrowed performance. High pressure pushes blood through filters faster, but it also stretches and scars them. Over time, glomerular walls thicken. Membranes stiffen. More pressure is required to achieve the same filtration. This is how hypertension quietly destroys kidneys. Not in one moment, but through repetition. And alcohol fuels this cycle more than most people realize. When you stop drinking, this system finally begins to calm. Renin signaling decreases. Angiotensin levels fall. Blood vessels slowly relax. Filtration pressure drops. And for the first time in years, your kidneys are allowed to work without being forced. This is not weakness. This is intelligence returning. Many people notice their blood pressure readings begin to change during this period. Sometimes they improve dramatically. Sometimes they reveal uncomfortable truths. Values that once looked fine were supported by chronic dehydration. Now that hydration normalizes, the real baseline appears. This honesty can be unsettling, but honesty is what allows intervention. Illusion only delays damage. As pressure stabilizes, something else begins to improve. Sleep becomes deeper. Morning headaches fade. Mental clarity increases. These are not detox effects. They are downstream consequences of stable kidney circulation and restored electrolyte balance. Your brain depends on this stability more than you realize. Here's an important warning. This is also the stage where people feel confident again. They feel normal, and that confidence becomes dangerous. Returning to alcohol now hits kidneys harder than before. Relaxed vessels suddenly face toxic stress. Inflammatory pathways reignite. Damage accelerates. Consistency matters more than intensity here. Staying alcohol-free through this phase allows the new pressure baseline to settle, and that baseline unlocks the final layer of recovery. Not filtration, not pressure, but chemistry. In the next part, we'll explore what happens inside kidney cells themselves during the final stretch of a 30-day break, how acid balance resets, why energy feels lighter, and what improvements are real versus what cannot be reversed. Because kidneys can recover efficiency, but they do not regenerate loss. And understanding that boundary is what separates hope from illusion. Part 4. The hidden chemical recovery inside your kidneys. Up to this point, everything we've talked about has been mechanical. Hormones switching back on. Blood pressure easing. Vessels relaxing. But now, the story moves somewhere quieter, deeper, inside the kidney cells themselves, because your kidneys are not just filters. They are chemical regulators. Minute by minute, they decide what stays, what leaves, and how stable your internal environment really is. And alcohol quietly distorts that chemistry for years. Every time alcohol is metabolized, it generates acidic byproducts, lactate, ketone acids, reactive molecules that push blood chemistry slightly off balance. Not enough to cause an emergency, but enough to force compensation. Your kidneys respond by working harder to correct pH, excreting hydrogen ions, reclaiming bicarbonate, and spending enormous cellular energy just to keep your blood within survivable limits. This creates a state known as low-grade metabolic acidosis. You don't feel it as pain. You feel it as background fatigue, brain fog, muscle heaviness, that constant sense that your body is working harder than it should. When alcohol stops, this chemical burden begins to lift. Slowly, quietly, bicarbonate balance stabilizes. Blood pH returns toward its narrow optimal range, and kidney cells finally stop running emergency corrections all day. This matters more than most people realize. Cells operate best within precise chemical boundaries. Even tiny shifts in acidity change how enzymes work, how energy is produced, and how signals are transmitted. As balance returns, cellular efficiency improves. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Inside kidney tubule cells, mitochondria begin to recover. These are the structures responsible for producing energy. Alcohol-related oxidative stress damages them over time, forcing energy production to become inefficient and leaky. After weeks without alcohol, oxidative pressure falls. Glutathione levels recover. Reactive oxygen species decrease. Energy production becomes smoother, cleaner, less wasteful. This is why people often describe feeling lighter around week 3 or 4. Not energized, just less heavy, less internal friction. Another quiet shift happens here. Uric acid handling improves. Alcohol interferes with the kidney's ability to excrete uric acid, allowing it to accumulate. This is why alcohol is strongly linked to gout and unexplained joint stiffness. After sustained abstinence, renal urate clearance increases. Crystallization risk drops. Inflammatory signaling decreases. Joint discomfort often fades without fanfare. Not because something magical happened, but because chemistry returned to order. Glucose regulation also changes. Your kidneys play a role in glucose production during fasting and overnight periods. Alcohol hijacks this role, diverting resources toward ethanol metabolism. Once alcohol is gone, normal gluconeogenesis resumes. Energy availability becomes steadier, especially between meals or overnight. This contributes to more stable moods, less early morning anxiety, and fewer energy crashes. Again, subtle but real. Here's the crucial clarification. Feeling better does not mean damage is undone. Kidneys do not regenerate nephrons once they are lost. What improves is efficiency, not quantity. Surviving structures stop operating in crisis mode and begin working intelligently again. This is recovery within limits, and those limits matter. This stage often creates a dangerous illusion. People think, I'm fine now, but what they're feeling is relief, not immunity. Relapse here is particularly harmful because newly stabilized chemistry is suddenly shocked again. Inflammation spikes faster. Damage compounds more aggressively. This is how acute injury stacks on chronic strain. 30 days without alcohol doesn't cure kidneys. It reveals them. It shows you how much function remains, how much pressure has eased, and how much chemistry can still recover. That information is powerful, but it also carries responsibility, because once you know how quiet and stable your internal environment can feel, you can't unknow it. In the final part, we'll talk honestly about limits, what recovery can and cannot do, why early changes matter more than late ones, and how to interpret improvement without falling into false confidence, because kidneys don't ask for perfection. They ask for consistency, and biology always keeps score. Part 5. The hard limits of recovery. By now, something important has happened. Not inside your kidneys, inside your expectations. Because once the swelling fades, the pressure settles, the fatigue lifts, and your chemistry stabilizes, the mind quietly asks a dangerous question. Am I healed? Science answers this carefully. And honestly, your kidneys are resilient, but they are not infinite. Here is the boundary biology never negotiates. Kidneys do not regenerate nephrons. Nephrons are the microscopic filtration units that clean your blood. Once they are destroyed and replaced by scar tissue, they are gone forever. No detox, no supplement, no discipline. That fact is not pessimism. It is orientation. Because recovery is not about bringing back what was lost. It is about protecting what remains. What abstinence actually does is this. It removes constant chemical interference. It lowers inflammatory signaling. It reduces pressure inside surviving filters. It allows remaining nephrons to stop operating in emergency mode. Think of it as taking your foot off the accelerator. Before the engine overheats completely, you're not rebuilding the engine. You're preventing catastrophic failure. This distinction matters because it reshapes motivation. If you believe recovery means undoing damage, you'll relax too early. If you understand recovery means preserving function, you become consistent. And consistency is what kidneys respond to. This is also where many people fall into a psychological trap, known in recovery science as the pink cloud effect. You feel clearer, calmer, more stable than expected. So the mind concludes, I can probably handle just one drink now. Biology disagrees. Relapse after abstinence hits harder because blood vessels have relaxed. Electrolyte systems have recalibrated. Inflammation has quieted. When alcohol suddenly returns, the shock is sharper. Clinically, this is called acute on chronic injury, and outcomes are worse than before. Not because your body is weaker, but because the contrast is greater. This is why cycles of quitting and restarting accelerate long-term kidney decline. The damage doesn't reset. It stacks. The World Health Organization warns that repeated alcohol exposure creates compounding organ injury even when symptoms temporarily disappear. Silence does not mean safety. It means compensation is still working until it isn't. So what does 30 days actually give you? Not a finish line. A diagnostic window. A clear biological report card. It shows how much pressure was alcohol driven, how responsive your systems still are, how much capacity remains worth protecting DAI. That information is invaluable because it arrives before pain forces attention. Here's the quiet truth. Kidneys don't scream. They don't warn loudly. They adapt until adaptation runs out. 30 days gives you the rare chance to hear the silence before it turns into irreversible loss. Not fear, not punishment, awareness. If you're watching this and recognizing your own body in the story, stay curious and stay consistent. If this explanation helped you understand your biology more clearly, consider liking the video and subscribing. This channel exists to explain health without shame, hype, or shortcuts. And if you want to share where you are in your own journey, whether you're considering a break, already taking one, or simply learning, the comments are open. Your body has been keeping score quietly for years. Now you know how to read it. And that knowledge, used wisely, changes trajectories. Part 6. What this really means for you. After all the biology, the hormones, the pressure changes, the chemistry resets, the most important question is not, should I never drink again? Science doesn't ask that. It asks something quieter. What did your body show you when alcohol was removed? Because that answer is different for everyone. For some people, 30 days reveals early stage stress that quickly stabilizes. For others, it exposes how close their kidneys were to crossing a line they didn't feel yet. Neither outcome is a verdict. Both are information, and information restores choice. This is where many health narratives fail. They turn biology into morality. They frame recovery as virtue and relapse as weakness. Your kidneys don't think like that. They respond to patterns, not promises. Consistency matters more than intensity. Stability matters more than perfection. You don't need lifelong vows to respect your biology. You need awareness. Awareness turns binge cycles into pauses, mindless habits into deliberate ones, fear into measured control. And that alone reduces damage dramatically. If you choose abstinence, your kidneys compound stability quietly. If you choose moderation, your kidneys demand honesty and spacing. If you ignore signals, biology will eventually speak louder. That part is not negotiable. The real lesson of these 30 days is not never drink again. It is this: your body is not fragile, but it is honest. It adapts until it cannot. So if this video helped you understand your body instead of fighting it, that's the win. If you want more explanations like this, grounded, neutral, and science first, consider liking the video and subscribing. And if you're curious where others are on this path, scroll the comments. You're not alone in this conversation. You're just listening earlier than most.